I said, get out, old woman!
Get out! I said, get out, old woman. The slap echoed through the cathedral like a gunshot splitting the Sunday morning silence. 200 guests froze mid-breath. A bouquet of white roses tumbled from trembling hands and scattered across the polished marble floor of St. Catherine's Cathedral in downtown Chicago. The string quartet stopped playing. The flower girl started crying, and under the glow of crystal chandeliers, beneath towering stained glass windows that had witnessed 1,000 sacred vows, a young man in an Italian designer tuxedo had just struck his own mother across the face. Her name was Monica. She was 63 years old. She wore a faded white dress from a thrift store on Ashland Avenue. And as she stumbled backward, one weathered hand clutching her burning cheek, her eyes never left her son's face. Not with hatred. Not with rage, but with something far more devastating. Heartbreak. Ben. Her voice cracked like old glass. You do this, here, in the house of God. I said, get out, he hissed, his jaw tight, his designer cologne mixing with the scent of altar candles and expensive perfume. You're embarrassing me in front of everyone. Look at you, showing up here in that pathetic old dress like some homeless woman off the street. Silence crashed over the cathedral like a wave drowning sound itself. The bride, Gloria, took 3 steps backward in her $15,000 gown, her manicured hand covering her mouth. Her father, Congressman Richard Hartwell, sat rigid in the front pew, his face carved from stone. The phones came out, dozens of them, screens glowing like hungry eyes, capturing every second of the moment that would shatter a family and ignite a city. Monica bent down slowly, her knees creaking, and gathered the crushed roses into her arms. She pressed them against her chest, like she was holding a sleeping child. I didn't come here to shame you, my son, she whispered through tears that carved lines down her sun-damaged cheeks. I came to bless you. Even if you've forgotten the mother who raised you alone, who scrubbed floors so you could eat, who worked 3 jobs so you could go to college. She turned. Her worn shoes made no sound against the cold marble. As she walked toward the massive oak doors, 200 pairs of eyes followed her. Some filled with pity, some with judgment, some with recognition, because they too had mothers they'd forgotten. Mothers they'd left behind in pursuit of something shinier. Outside, the Chicago wind lifted the hem of her faded dress. September sunlight caught the silver in her hair and the glisten of her tears. I wore white, she murmured to the empty street. Not to celebrate your wedding, but to mourn the son I lost to his own ambition. She placed one hand on the iron railing, steadying herself. Then she walked down the cathedral steps, past the line of Mercedes and BMWs, past the valets in their pressed uniforms, and disappeared into the city that had built her son but had no room left for her. In a world where success can make people forget the hands that once fed them, this story will crack your heart open and force you to look at the mirror you've been avoiding. This isn't just about a wedding. This is about every child who climbed a ladder and kicked away the person holding it steady. This is about the price we pay when we trade love for status, when we choose image over integrity, when we decide that the people who made us are no longer worthy of standing beside us. Tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? New York, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Houston, Miami? Would you forgive a son who struck his mother on his wedding day? Or is there a line that, once crossed, can never be uncrossed? Don't scroll away. Don't skip ahead. Stay with this story because before it ends, you'll understand something crucial about yourself. Something about the person you're becoming. Something about whether you're climbing toward success or away from your humanity. And somewhere tonight, another mother stands outside locked doors, wearing her best dress, waiting to be remembered by the child she gave everything to create. The morning started 3 hours earlier. Monica had been awake since 4 a.m., sitting at her small kitchen table in the one-bedroom apartment she rented in Pilsen, on the southwest side of Chicago. The invitation sat before her, embossed with gold lettering that caught the dim light from her single overhead bulb. You are cordially invited to witness the union of Benjamin Marcus Chen and Gloria Marie Hartwell. St. Catherine's Cathedral, September 15th. Formal attire required. No mention of a mother. No line that said son of Monica Chen. Just his name, floating free like he'd created himself, like he'd emerged fully formed from the Chicago business world, with no history, no roots, no debts to pay. She traced her finger across his name. Benjamin. She'd named him that because it meant son of my right hand in Hebrew. She wasn't religious, but she'd liked the meaning. He was supposed to be her strength, her future. The reason all the pain made sense. On the cracked wall of her kitchen hung a photograph in a drugstore frame. A young Ben, maybe 7 years old, gap-toothed and grinning, holding a blue ribbon from his school science fair. Monica stood beside him, younger then, her hair still black, her smile genuine. She remembered that day. She'd worked a double shift at the diner, then rushed to his school still wearing her grease-stained uniform. Ben had been embarrassed, even then. She pulled the photo off the wall and tucked it carefully into her purse. Her neighbor, Mrs. Kowalski, knocked on the door holding a cup of coffee and a look of deep concern. "Monica, please don't go," she said, setting the coffee down. "You know he didn't invite you. Those people, they don't like seeing where they came from. It reminds them of who they really are." Monica smiled, tired but certain. "A mother's blessing doesn't need an invitation, Mrs. K. I just need to see him. To stand where he can see me, even from far away. To let him know I'm still here." She opened her small closet. Inside hung the white dress, the one she'd worn to her own mother's funeral 20 years ago. She shook off the dust, pressed it with her hands since she didn't own an iron, and slipped it on. The fabric hung loose on her frame. She'd lost weight since Ben stopped calling. Grief, she'd learned, was an appetite suppressant no doctor could prescribe. Around her neck, she wore the only piece of jewelry she owned, a small silver cross her mother had given her. She touched it now, drawing strength from the cold metal. The journey from Pilsen to downtown Chicago took 90 minutes. Monica didn't have money for an Uber. The Red Line train rattled and screeched, carrying her through neighborhoods that marked her son's journey in reverse. From the working-class South Side where she'd raised him, through the University District, where he'd earned his scholarship, into the gleaming downtown where he now lived in a penthouse she'd never been invited to see. At each stop, she watched people board and exit, young professionals in tailored suits, college students with laptops and expensive headphones. None of them looked at her. In her faded white dress and worn shoes, she was invisible. Just another elderly woman the city had forgotten. She emerged from the subway into the blinding September sun. The Chicago Loop towered around her, glass and steel monuments to ambition, to the kind of success her son had achieved. On the side of one building, a massive digital billboard displayed Ben's face alongside the words, "Chen Capital Management, building tomorrow's fortune today." She stopped, staring up at the image. His face had hardened since she'd last seen him 2 years ago. At a brief, awkward lunch he'd agreed to only after she'd called his office 15 times. His jaw was sharper, his eyes colder. He looked like a stranger wearing her son's face. St. Catherine's Cathedral rose before her like a limestone fortress, its Gothic spires piercing the blue Chicago sky. Wedding guests arrived in a parade of luxury: black-town cars, polished sedans, women in designer dresses that cost more than Monica's yearly rent. They flowed up the cathedral steps like a river of wealth and privilege, laughing, air-kissing, checking their makeup in phone cameras. Monica approached the entrance. 2 security guards in dark suits flanked the doors, checking invitations with the efficiency of Secret Service agents. She cleared her throat softly. "Excuse me. Could you please tell Benjamin, that his mother is here?" The first guard looked her up and down. His eyes moved from her faded dress to her scuffed shoes to the small bouquet of grocery store roses she'd bought for $3. "Ma'am," he said, not unkindly. "Do you have an invitation?" "I'm his mother." Monica's voice was steady. "I'm Monica Chen. I raised him. I think that's invitation enough." The second guard whispered something into his radio. A moment later, a woman in a headset appeared, the wedding coordinator, her smile professional and cold. "I'm sorry," she said, "but this is a private event. If you're not on the guest list, I can't allow you inside." "I'm not asking for a seat," Monica said quietly. "I just want to stand in back, to see him, to give him my blessing." The coordinator's smile didn't waver. "I understand. But those aren't my instructions. I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises." Monica looked past her, through the open cathedral doors. Inside, she could see white flowers everywhere, could hear the swell of organ music, could glimpse the silhouettes of guests taking their seats. Somewhere in there, her son was preparing to start a new life. Without her. "Please," she whispered. "Just let me stand outside. I won't cause any trouble. I just need to be near him, just this once." The coordinator's face softened for just a moment. Then she shook her head. "I'm sorry." But Monica didn't leave. She couldn't. Some gravitational force stronger than pride or logic held her there. She moved to the side of the entrance, pressed herself against the cool limestone wall, and waited. The sun climbed higher. Sweat beaded on her forehead. Her feet ached in her old shoes. But she stayed. Through the iron gates, she could see the ceremony beginning. White ribbons fluttered. The bride appeared, a vision in silk and lace. And there, at the altar, stood Ben. Even from this distance, she recognized the way he stood, the tilt of his head, the nervous gesture of adjusting his cufflinks that he'd had since childhood. The music swelled, the ceremony began, and Monica whispered a prayer that traveled through iron and stone and stained glass, a mother's blessing that needed no invitation, no permission, no place at the table. But blessings, she would learn, can be persistent things. They find their way in through cracks and keyholes. They slip past security and protocol. They arrive uninvited and change everything. 28 years earlier, Monica Chen gave birth to her son in the charity ward of Cook County Hospital on a freezing January night. She was 35 years old, unmarried, and terrified. The father, a man named Marcus, whom she'd met at the restaurant where she waitressed, had disappeared 3 months into her pregnancy. Just vanished, like smoke clearing from a room, leaving behind nothing but an empty closet and a note that said, "I'm not ready." She named the baby Benjamin Marcus Chen. The Marcus was a ghost's name, a placeholder for the father who would never return. But Benjamin, that was hers. That was hope. That was the promise she made to herself in that sterile hospital room. This child would be everything she never got to be. Monica's own childhood had been hard in ways she tried not to remember. Her parents had immigrated from Guangzhou when she was 5, chasing the American dream through a haze of factory work and broken English. Her father died when she was 16, a heart attack on the floor of the textile plant where he'd worked double shifts for 20 years. Her mother lasted another decade before cancer took her, leaving Monica with nothing but memories and the silver cross now hanging around her neck. So when Ben came into the world, red-faced and screaming, Monica made a vow. He would never struggle the way she had. He would never feel small or forgotten or invisible. He would rise. The first years were brutal. Monica worked 3 jobs: breakfast shift at a diner on Halsted, afternoon cleaning shifts at an office building downtown, and weekend nights stocking shelves at a 24-hour grocery store. She slept 4 hours a night if she was lucky. Ben stayed with Mrs. Kowalski during the day, or sometimes Monica brought him to work, hiding him in the break room during her cleaning shifts, praying no supervisor would notice. Money was a constant equation she could never balance. Rent or food, heat or electricity. New shoes for Ben or paying down the medical debt from his birth. She chose him every time. She went hungry so he could eat. She wore the same 3 outfits for years so he could have clean clothes for school. She walked miles in Chicago winters to save bus fare so he could have books. Ben was a bright child, frighteningly bright. By age 5, he was reading chapter books. By 7, he was winning math competitions. His teachers called Monica in for conferences, their faces bright with excitement. "Your son is gifted, Mrs. Chen. He could go far, really far. He will go far," Monica told them. "That's why I'm here." She pushed him relentlessly. Homework before play. Study before television. Excellence before everything. She couldn't give him wealth, but she could give him discipline. She couldn't give him connections, but she could give him hunger. And Ben, perhaps because he sensed the weight of her sacrifices, perhaps because he absorbed her desperation, became exactly what she molded: a machine of ambition, efficient and relentless. But something got lost in the molding, something soft and necessary. The first crack appeared when Ben was 14. He'd won a prestigious scholarship to a private high school in the suburbs, Lincoln Academy, where the children of Chicago's elite sent their offspring to be polished into legacy admissions. Monica was ecstatic. This was the door she'd been pushing toward since he was born. But Ben came home from his first week quiet and strange. She found him in his room, staring at the cracked ceiling of their Pilsen apartment. "What's wrong, baby?" "Nothing." "Ben." He turned to her, and in his eyes she saw something new. Shame. Not shame of failure, but shame of her, of where they lived, of what they were. "They asked where I lived," he said quietly. "I told them Pilsen." They laughed. "They said that's where their gardeners live." Monica's heart cracked, but she kept her voice steady. "Let them laugh, Ben. You'll laugh last. You'll laugh from the top." And he did. He threw himself into school with renewed ferocity. He joined every club, aced every test, networked with every influential family. He learned to dress like them, talk like them, hide the Pilsen dust under layers of borrowed sophistication. By senior year, he'd been accepted to Northwestern University with a full scholarship. Monica cried when the letter came. All the years, all the sacrifices, all the hunger, It was finally paying off. But the distance between them grew with his success. College Ben came home less frequently. He started correcting her English. He winced when she showed up to campus in her diner uniform. Once, when she surprised him during Parents' Weekend, he introduced her to his friends as my landlady, before quickly pulling her aside and hissing, "Mom, why didn't you tell me you were coming? I could have met you somewhere else." Somewhere else? Her voice had been very small. "I'm not good enough to be seen with you? That's not... It's just... You don't understand how things work here." But she did understand. She understood perfectly. Her son was learning to be ashamed of where he came from. He was learning that success meant shedding your past, like a snake sheds its skin. After college, Ben moved even further away. Not in miles, his apartment was only 20 minutes from Pilsen, but in every other way that mattered. He started a financial firm with money from investors he'd met at Northwestern. Within 5 years, Chen Capital Management was managing hundreds of millions of dollars. Ben appeared in Chicago Magazine's 30 Under 30. He bought a penthouse in the Loop with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. Monica saw him perhaps twice a year. Brief, obligatory lunches where he checked his phone constantly and asked surface questions about her health without really listening to the answers. She wanted to tell him about the pain in her knees from decades of standing, about the loneliness that felt like drowning in slow motion, about how she still kept every birthday card he'd ever made her, back when his handwriting was clumsy and his love was unconditional. But she didn't. She smiled and said she was fine, and pretended not to notice how he looked at his watch, calculating how soon he could leave. Then came Gloria. Gloria Hartwell, daughter of Congressman Richard Hartwell, a power broker in Illinois politics. Gloria, with her Ivy League degree and her family's old money and her connections that could launch Ben into stratospheres he'd only dreamed of. When Ben called to tell Monica about the engagement, his voice had a quality she'd never heard before. Triumph. "She's perfect, Mom. Her family can help me expand the firm nationally. Her father's introducing me to people in New York, in D.C. This is the break I've been working toward." "Does she make you happy?" Monica had asked. A pause. "Of course. Yeah, she's great. Really great. When do I get to meet her?" Another pause. Longer. "Soon. We're really busy with wedding planning, but soon never came." Months passed. The engagement announcement appeared in the Chicago Tribune with a photo of Ben and Gloria at some charity gala, both of them gleaming and perfect. Monica wasn't mentioned. She wasn't even listed as family. The announcement read, "Benjamin Marcus Chen, founder of Chen Capital Management, and Gloria Marie Hartwell, daughter of Congressman and Mrs. Richard Hartwell." No mother, no Pilsen, no one-bedroom apartment or 3 jobs or 28 years of sacrifice. He'd erased her from his origin story, revised his history to begin at Northwestern, as if he'd emerged fully formed from the waters of Lake Michigan, with a business degree and ambition, but no past, no debts, no mother who'd given everything. Monica kept the announcement. She folded it carefully and placed it in a drawer with all his other achievements. Report cards, awards, newspaper clippings, evidence that he'd succeeded, proof that her suffering had meant something. When the wedding invitation arrived, not mailed but dropped off by Ben's assistant with a brief note, "Mr. Chen asked me to deliver this to you personally," Monica held it like it was made of glass. She'd been expecting it for months, hoping against hope that she'd be included, that he hadn't forgotten her completely. The invitation was beautiful, expensive paper, gold embossing. But as she read it, A cold understanding settled in her chest. This wasn't an invitation. This was a notification. This event is happening. You have been informed. No RSVP card for her. No meal choice. No seating assignment. Just information, delivered with the efficient coldness of a legal document. She called Ben's office. He didn't answer. She called 17 times over 2 weeks. Finally, his assistant called back. Mrs. Chen, Mr. Chen asked me to convey that the wedding is a very small, intimate affair. He hopes you understand. I'm his mother. I understand, ma'am, but the guest list has been finalized by both families. I'm very sorry. Monica hung up. She sat in her kitchen for a long time, staring at the invitation. Mrs. Kowalski found her there hours later, still holding it. Don't go, Monica, her neighbor said gently. He's made his choice. You'll only hurt yourself. But Monica shook her head. He's still my son. I gave him life. He doesn't get to uninvite me from that. She bought the white dress the next day. She'd originally planned to wear something colorful, something celebratory. But when she saw the white dress in the thrift store window, something shifted. White for weddings, white for funerals, white for endings and beginnings, white for the death of one thing and the birth of another. The night before the wedding, Monica couldn't sleep. She lay in her small bed, listening to the sounds of the city, sirens, car horns, the distant bass of music from a neighbor's apartment. She thought about all the nights like this, nights when she'd lain awake worrying about Ben, about his fevers when he was small, about bullies at school, about whether he was eating enough at college, about whether she'd done enough, given enough, loved enough. She'd built her entire life around him. Every choice, every sacrifice, every painful decision had been made with one question. What's best for Ben? She'd given up dating, given up friendships, given up any life of her own. She'd poured herself entirely into the vessel of her son, believing that when he succeeded, it would mean she'd succeeded too. That his happiness would justify her suffering. But lying there in the dark, a terrible thought occurred to her. What if she'd built him wrong? What if, in teaching him to climb, she'd forgotten to teach him to look down? What if her greatest success was also her greatest failure? She pushed the thought away. Tomorrow, she would go to the cathedral. She would stand outside if she had to. She would be present at the moment her son started his new life. And maybe, just maybe, if he saw her there, something would shift. He would remember. He would come to her. He would finally understand that all the wealth and status and success meant nothing if you lost your humanity in the pursuit of it. She fell asleep just before dawn, her hand clutching the silver cross around her neck. She dreamed of Ben as a child, his small hand in hers, walking through the snow on their way to his first day of kindergarten. In the dream, he looked up at her and said, "I'll never forget you, Mama. Never." She woke to sunlight and the distant sound of church bells. It was time. The interior of St. Catherine's Cathedral was designed to inspire awe. Vaulted ceilings soared 60 feet overhead, ribbed with dark wood and painted with frescoes of angels ascending into golden clouds. Stained glass windows depicting biblical scenes filtered the late morning sunlight into pools of ruby, sapphire, and amber that danced across the polished marble floors. The air smelled of white roses, burning candles, and the faint, lingering incense from Sunday Mass. 200 guests filled the pews, a carefully curated collection of Chicago's elite. Venture capitalists in Tom Ford suits, lawyers from white shoe firms, politicians and their polished spouses, society women in jewel-toned dresses and statement jewelry. Everyone who was anyone, everyone who mattered in Ben's new life. In the front row, Congressman Richard Hartwell sat like a Roman statue, his silver hair impeccable, his American flag pin catching the light. Beside him, his wife Diane fanned herself delicately, despite the cathedral's perfect climate control. They'd wanted this wedding at their country club, but Gloria had insisted on St. Catherine's. "It's more elegant, Daddy. More timeless." Near the back, Ben's college roommate whispered to his wife, "I can't believe we're here. 4 years I lived with him in a dorm room, and I never once heard him mention his family." "Maybe he's an orphan," she whispered back. "Maybe he just acts like one." The string quartet played Pachelbel's canon in D, the notes floating through the cathedral like silk scarves. Bridesmaids in dusty rose dresses glided down the aisle, their choreographed smiles perfect. The flower girl, Gloria's niece, scattered petals with the seriousness of someone performing surgery. At the altar, Ben waited. He looked perfect. No other word fit. His tuxedo was custom-made by a Savile Row tailor who'd flown in specifically to fit him. His shoes were Italian leather that cost more than Monica's monthly rent. His hair was styled with the kind of casual precision that required an hour in a chair and cost $300. Everything about him screamed success, achievement, arrival. But if you looked closely, if you knew him before he learned to curate himself, you'd see the tension in his jaw. The way his eyes darted to the entrance every few seconds. The nervous habit of touching his cufflinks that he'd never quite conquered. A tell from childhood that betrayed the boy still hiding inside the man. His best man, a fellow from his firm named Derek, leaned over. "Nervous?" "No," Ben said quickly. "I'm good. Everything's perfect." "Your mom coming?" Derek asked, then immediately seemed to regret it. "Sorry, man. None of my business." Ben's face hardened for just a flash, then smoothed back into his careful neutrality. "My mother is deceased," he said, the lie coming easily, practiced. "She passed when I was young." "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know." "It's fine. It was a long time ago." But it wasn't fine, and it wasn't a long time ago. It was happening right now, the murder of Monica Chen, not with weapons but with words, with erasure, with the careful construction of a past that had no room for the woman who'd built him from scratch. The music swelled, Wagner's bridal chorus. Everyone stood, turning toward the entrance. Gloria appeared, a vision in white silk and French lace, her veil a cascade of delicate tulle. She glided down the aisle on her father's arm, and Ben felt what he was supposed to feel. Pride, anticipation, the sense of standing at the threshold of everything he'd worked for. Gloria reached him. Her father lifted her veil, kissed her cheek, and placed her hand in Ben's. Up close, Ben could see the diamond earrings he'd given her, 2 carats each, tasteful but impressive. Everything about this moment was impressive. Everything was exactly as it should be. The priest, Father Michael O'Brien, opened his leather-bound Bible. He was 70, with kind eyes and a voice that had married hundreds of couples in this cathedral. He believed in the sanctity of marriage, in the grace of God, in the power of love to redeem even the most broken among us. "Dearly beloved," he began, "we are gathered here today in the sight of God and these witnesses to join together Benjamin Marcus Chen and Gloria Marie Hartwell in holy matrimony." The words washed over Ben. He was thinking about the honeymoon 2 weeks in Tuscany, about the merger he was negotiating, worth $50 million. About the Forbes profile his PR team was pitching. From nothing to everything, the Ben Chen story. From nothing. As if he'd materialized fully formed with no history, no mother, no debts. Marriage, Father O'Brien continued, is not to be entered into lightly, but reverently, deliberately, and in accordance with the purposes for which it was instituted by God. It requires giving the very best of ourselves to one another in love, respect, and steadfast commitment. Steadfast commitment. Ben thought about Monica, about the countless nights she'd worked so he could sleep, about the times he'd seen her count change on the kitchen table, deciding between electricity and heat, about how she'd never once complained, never once made him feel like a burden, even though every rational calculation said he was. He pushed the thoughts away. That was the past. This was the future. If any person can show just cause why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, Father O'Brien said, his voice formal and ancient, let them speak now or forever hold their peace. The traditional pause. No one ever spoke at this moment. It was ceremonial, a holdover from medieval times, a formality everyone knew was meaningless, except this time. A sound, soft at first, almost nothing. The gentle creak of a side door opening, the kind of sound that would normally vanish into the cathedral's ambient noise. But in the silence following the priest's question, it echoed. Heads turned. Not dramatically at first, just a few people in the back rows, curious about who was arriving late. Then more heads, then gasps, quiet but spreading like a contagion. A woman stood in the side entrance. She wore a faded white dress that had once been nice, but now hung on her thin frame like a garment awaiting a body. Her hair, more silver than black, was pulled back in a simple bun. Her face was weathered by sun and time and worry, lines carved deep around her eyes and mouth. She held a small bouquet of roses, the petals starting to wilt in the heat. She looked nothing like the glamorous guests in their designer clothes and expensive jewelry. She looked like someone who'd gotten lost and wandered in by mistake. Someone from an entirely different world, a world these people in their wealth and privilege had never seen and never wanted to. But Ben recognized her instantly. The cathedral seemed to tilt. His vision narrowed. Somewhere far away, he heard Gloria's sharp intake of breath, felt her grip tighten on his arm. But all he could see was Monica, standing in the doorway like a ghost made flesh, like every buried secret and forgotten shame suddenly given form. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." Monica's eyes found his across the distance. In them, he saw no anger, no accusation, only love. That's what broke him. That's what transformed his shock into rage. Because if she'd come with hatred, he could have matched it. But she came with love, and love required something from him he wasn't willing to give. Acknowledgement. The security guards reached her, one on each side, trying to be discreet, trying to escort her out without causing a scene. But she gently pulled her arms free. "I'm not leaving," she said quietly. "I'm his mother. I have a right to be here." The words carried through the cathedral, amplified by the acoustic architecture designed to carry prayer to heaven. Mother. The word landed like a bomb. Heads swiveled between Monica and Ben, calculations happening in real time. This was his mother? The mother he said was dead? The mother he'd erased from his carefully crafted narrative? Ben's face went from shock to fury in seconds. He released Gloria's hand and stepped off the altar platform, his shoes striking the marble with sharp, violent sounds. He crossed the space between them with the kind of focused intensity he usually reserved for boardrooms and negotiations. for moments when crushing an opponent was necessary. "What are you doing here?" His voice was low, controlled, meant only for her, but in the silence everyone heard. "Ben, I just wanted to see you, to bless you." Monica's voice trembled. "I'm your mother. I raised you. I thought you'd want me here. You weren't invited." Each word was clipped, surgical. "You don't belong here." Around them, phones emerged from purses and pockets. The modern instinct. When something dramatic happens, record it, preserve it, share it. The little red recording lights dotted the cathedral like demonic fireflies. "Please, son." Monica reached toward him, not to touch, just to offer. "I wore white for you. I wanted to be here for the happiest day of your life." "You want to be here?" Ben's voice rose, control slipping. "Look at you. Look at this place. Look at these people. You're embarrassing me. You're humiliating me in front of everyone who matters." "I matter," Monica said softly. "I'm your mother. I changed your diapers. I taught you to read. I worked 3 jobs so you could go to college. Don't." The word was sharp as a slap. "Don't do this here." "Do what? Tell the truth?" And that's when something inside Ben snapped. All the years of carefully constructed lies. All the networking and code switching and pretending to be someone he wasn't. All the nights he'd lain awake terrified that someone would discover his real origins, that his carefully built tower would collapse. It all came crashing down, and in the rubble he found only rage. "Get out," he said. "Get out, old woman." "Ben, please." And then his hand moved. Fast, instinctive. A motion he'd learned as a child, seeing it on television, in movies, the ultimate gesture of dismissal and dominance. His palm connected with Monica's cheek, with a sound that would replay in nightmares and news cycles for weeks to come. The slap. Time fractured. The cathedral froze in a moment of collective shock so profound, it felt like the world had stopped spinning. The string quartet's bows hovered above their instruments. The flower girl's mouth opened in a perfect O. Gloria's hand flew to cover her own mouth. Congressman Hartwell half rose from his seat, his face a mask of political calculation. "How does this affect me?" Monica stumbled backward. Her hand rose slowly to touch her burning cheek. The bouquet slipped from her grasp, roses scattering across the white marble like drops of blood. But her eyes, when she looked at Ben, held no hatred. Only an infinite sadness that seemed to fill the cathedral, pressing against the stained glass, testing the vaulted ceiling, looking for escape. "You do this," she whispered. "You do this in the house of God." Ben's hand hung in the air for a moment, as if it didn't belong to him, as if he couldn't quite understand what it had just done. Then he clenched it into a fist and dropped it to his side. I said, "Get out. You're embarrassing me in front of everyone. Look at you, showing up here in that filthy old dress like some beggar. You have no right to be here." The words kept coming, each one a nail in a coffin he didn't realize he was building for himself. Around him, faces that had been polished with admiration now showed something else. Horror, disgust, recognition of a man revealing his true self. Monica bent down slowly, her knees creaking. She gathered the scattered roses, pressing them to her chest. When she straightened, tears carved silver tracks down her weathered cheeks. "I didn't come here to shame you, my son," she said, her voice barely audible. "I came to bless you. Even if you've forgotten the mother who raised you alone, who gave you everything, who loved you when no one else in this world did." She turned, Her white dress, worn and faded, brushed against the marble floor as she walked. The cathedral remained silent except for the soft shuffle of her footsteps and the clicking of phone cameras capturing every moment. At the door, she paused. She looked back once, her eyes finding Ben's across the expanse of the cathedral. "I wore white," she said, her voice somehow carrying through the space. "Not to celebrate your wedding, but to mourn the son I lost to his own ambition." Then she was gone, disappearing into the bright September afternoon. The silence that followed was complete. Even the traffic sounds from Michigan Avenue seemed to have ceased. Everyone in the cathedral understood they'd just witnessed something profound and terrible. The death of a man's humanity, performed live in front of 200 witnesses and countless phone cameras. Ben stood frozen, his hand still tingling from the impact. Somewhere deep inside, a voice was screaming at him, telling him to run after her, to fall to his knees, to beg forgiveness. But the voice was drowned out by another, louder one. "You've worked too hard to go back now. These people can't see you weak. Finish the ceremony, salvage this, control the narrative." He turned back to the altar. Gloria stood there, her face pale, her hands trembling. Their eyes met. In that moment, he saw his future dying. "Gloria," he started. She held up one hand, stopping him. "Don't." Congressman Hartwell stood. His face was stone. His voice, when he spoke, carried the weight of political power and parental fury. "This wedding is over." Those 4 words echoed through the cathedral, final as a judge's gavel. The guests erupted into whispers, then louder conversations, then a chaotic exodus toward the doors. Ben stood at the altar, watching his carefully constructed world disintegrate like a sandcastle hit by a wave. Father O'Brien closed his Bible. His face showed deep sadness and something else. Disappointment in the failure of a soul. "My son," he said quietly, "there are some sins that echo through generations. You've just committed one." Outside, Monica walked through the streets of Chicago, her hand still pressed to her burning cheek. She walked past the luxury boutiques and the tourist crowds, past the street musicians and the hot dog vendors, walked until she reached the Red Line station. On the train back to Pilsen, she sat by the window, watching the city blur past. She thought about the moment Ben's hand had struck her face. She'd felt many things in that instant: shock, pain, heartbreak. But underneath it all, something else. A strange, terrible clarity. "He's gone," she thought. "My son is gone. Someone else is wearing his face, but my Ben, the boy I raised, he died somewhere along the way. And I never even got to say goodbye." The white dress was dirty now, smudged with cathedral dust and city grime. She looked down at the crushed roses in her lap, petals falling like small prayers. When she got home, Mrs. Kowalski was waiting on the building's front steps. "Oh, Monica," she said, seeing her face. "Oh, sweetheart." Monica collapsed into her neighbor's arms and wept. Not gentle tears, but gut-wrenching sobs that seemed to tear something loose inside her. She cried for the son she'd lost, for the 28 years she'd given him, for the hope that had sustained her through decades of hardship and was now revealed to be nothing but vapor. Upstairs in her apartment, she carefully removed the white dress and hung it in her closet. She washed her face, the cold water stinging her bruised cheek. She looked at herself in the small mirror over the bathroom sink and barely recognized the woman staring back. Who am I, she wondered, if I'm not Ben's mother? If I'm not the woman who sacrificed everything for her son's future? If all of that meant nothing, then what am I? She had no answer, only questions that would haunt her through the long night ahead. Back at St. Catherine's Cathedral, security guards ushered the last guests out. The white flower arrangements were already wilting in the heat. Someone had stepped on the fallen bouquet, grinding the roses into the marble, leaving a stain that would take days to clean. Ben sat alone in a side chapel, still in his tuxedo, his head in his hands. His phone buzzed relentlessly with messages, calls, notifications. The video was already spreading, already viral, already defining him in ways he'd never be able to escape. But he didn't look at his phone. He looked at his hand, the one that had struck his mother, and tried to understand what he'd become. Outside, the September sun continued its arc across the sky, indifferent to human drama. Somewhere in the city, a mother and her son both sat alone in separate rooms, united only by their shared grief, by the unbridgeable distance that had opened between them, by a single violent moment that would define the rest of their lives. If you think what Ben did was wrong, type "Mothers deserve respect" in the comments below. The video appeared on Twitter at 2:37 p.m., 14 minutes after the ceremony ended. It was shaky, filmed on someone's iPhone from the 8th row, but the audio was crystal clear. The slap sounded even worse on video, a sharp crack that made viewers flinch. Within an hour, it had 3 million views. Within 3 hours, it was trending nationally with the hashtag #WeddingSlap. By evening, it had gone global. News stations picked it up for their 6 o'clock broadcasts. Tonight, a shocking video from a Chicago wedding raises questions about success, family, and what we owe the people who raised us. Commentary poured in from every direction. Psychologists analyzed Ben's body language. Social media influencers made reaction videos. Think pieces appeared in online magazines with titles like "The American Dream's Dark Side" and "When Ambition Murders Love." Someone identified Ben, his LinkedIn profile, carefully curated to show his rise from Northwestern to financial success with no mention of his origins, was shared millions of times. People dug deeper. They found Monica's address. They found the building where she lived, the restaurants where she worked. Reporters camped outside her door. The internet, in its infinite capacity for both cruelty and justice, split into camps. Some defended Ben. "We don't know the full story. Maybe she was abusive. Maybe there's history we don't understand." But the majority saw what seemed obvious. A man who'd climbed high enough to forget where he came from, who'd traded his humanity for status, who'd quite literally struck down the person who'd lifted him up. The phrase, "the mother in white," trended for days. Ben woke up Monday morning in his penthouse apartment overlooking Lake Michigan. Gloria hadn't come home. She'd left the cathedral with her family and hadn't answered his calls. 43 missed calls, 17 voicemails. He didn't listen to them. He knew what they'd say. His phone buzzed constantly. Most of the messages were hateful. Death threats, biblical condemnations, people telling him he deserved to rot in hell. But there were also messages from his business contacts, his investors, his board members. These were worse. These were professional, polite, devastating. "Ben, given the situation, I think it's best if we postpone our meeting next week. The partners have decided to put our investment on hold pending a resolution of recent events. This is difficult, but the board feels it's in the firm's best interest if you step back from day-to-day operations." He stood at his floor-to-ceiling windows, watching boats cut white trails across the blue water of the lake. 20 stories below, the city moved forward, indifferent to his collapse. He'd worked for 15 years to get here, to this apartment, to this view. to this life where he was somebody. And in one moment, one violent, irreversible moment, he'd destroyed it all. The buzzer rang. Ben ignored it. It rang again. Then his phone. The building's doorman. "Mr. Chen, there are reporters in the lobby. I've been instructed by management to inform you that they'd like you to use the service entrance if you need to leave." The service entrance, where the help went. The irony wasn't lost on him. He turned on the television. CNN was running the story. They'd found photos of Monica from years ago. Her immigration documents, her employment records, pictures of young Ben at school events with Monica in the background, always in her work uniform, always slightly out of focus, as if even then she was being erased from the frame. A panel of commentators discussed the psychology of shame and class mobility. A sociologist from the University of Chicago spoke. "What we're seeing here is the dark side of the American dream. The idea that you can remake yourself, that you can shed your past and become new. But identity isn't something you can just discard. When you try to, it haunts you, it finds you, and sometimes it destroys you." Ben turned off the TV. At Chen Capital Management's offices in the Willis Tower, the situation was deteriorating fast. Derek, his partner, called an emergency meeting. "The SEC is asking questions," Derek said, his voice tight. "3 major clients want out. The Hartwell deal is obviously dead. Ben, you need to do something. A statement, an apology, something." "What do you want me to say?" Ben's voice was flat. "I don't know, man. But this is going to sink us. The firm, everything we built. It's not just about you anymore." But it was about him. It had always been about him. He'd built Chen Capital as an extension of himself, a monument to his rise, proof that Benjamin Marcus Chen had conquered the world. Now that monument was crumbling, and he was buried in the rubble. The board convened that afternoon via Zoom, a modern tribunal passing judgment, faces in squares, each one more uncomfortable than the last. The chairman, a venture capitalist named Robert Morrison, who'd been one of Ben's earliest supporters, spoke first. "Ben, I don't need to tell you how bad this is. The video has 30 million views. We're getting calls from journalists, from clients, from people threatening to pull their money. The firm's reputation is built on trust, on values, on integrity. How can we tell clients to trust us with their money when you, our founder, did that to your own mother?" "It was a private moment," Ben started. "Nothing's private anymore," Morrison cut him off. "You know that. This is 2124. Everything is public. Everything has consequences." The vote was swift and unanimous. Ben would step down as CEO, remaining as a silent partner with no operational authority. His equity stake would dilute. His salary would cease, effective immediately. "I built this company," Ben said, his voice hollow. "And you destroyed it?" Morrison replied. "One slap. That's all it took." After the call ended, Ben sat in his office, the Chicago skyline spread before him like a kingdom he'd just been exiled from. On his desk was a bronze paperweight shaped like a bull, a gift from his first major client. "For the man who charges forward," the inscription read. He picked it up, felt its weight, then hurled it at the window. It bounced off the reinforced glass and clattered to the floor, leaving a small scratch, a mark that would remain long after he was gone. Meanwhile, across the city, Monica sat in her small apartment, curtains drawn against the reporters still camped outside. Mrs. Kowalski had brought her soup, but it sat untouched on the table. Monica couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. The bruise on her face had deepened to a dark purple, a mark she covered with makeup when she had to go out, as if hiding the physical evidence could erase the emotional wound. But the world wouldn't let her hide. Reporters knocked constantly. Flowers appeared at her door, bouquets from strangers who'd seen the video and felt compelled to do something, anything. Cards arrived by the hundreds, letters from across the country, from mothers and sons and daughters, all sharing their own stories of family fracture and betrayal. One letter from a woman in Maine read, "I saw what happened to you, and I saw my own son. He hasn't called in 3 years. He got a big job in Boston and forgot where he came from. Your courage to show up, even when you weren't wanted, it inspired me. I'm going to try again. Thank you." Monica read each letter, her tears falling onto the paper, smudging the ink. She hadn't meant to become a symbol. She'd only wanted to see her son on his wedding day. A lawyer reached out, offering to represent her pro bono. "You could sue him," the lawyer said. "Assault, emotional distress. You'd win. The video is clear evidence." "I don't want his money," Monica said quietly. "I never wanted his money." "Then what do you want?" She thought about it for a long time. "I want him to remember who he was before he became who he is." But remembering, she was learning, was the hardest thing of all. On Wednesday, Gloria's mother called her for the first time since the wedding. They met at a cafe in Lincoln Park, expensive lattes and carefully neutral territory. "You're well?" Diane Hartwell asked, her tone suggesting she knew the answer. "I'm fine, Mother. The engagement is off, of course." Gloria nodded. She'd removed the ring the day of the wedding, left it on the bathroom counter of her parents' home with a note. "I can't marry a man who would do that to his mother. What would he do to me?" "Your father is handling the political fallout," Diane continued. "The press is being very understanding. You're the victim here, Gloria. The senator's office has already drafted a statement of support." "I don't want to be a victim," Gloria said. "I just want to forget this ever happened." But forgetting, like remembering, was impossible. The video was everywhere. Her friends wouldn't stop texting. At yoga class, women she barely knew approached her with sympathy and prying questions. She'd become part of the story, the bride who almost married a monster. The truth was more complicated. Ben hadn't been a monster. He'd been ambitious, yes. Driven, absolutely. But cruel? She'd never seen it. Until she had. Until the mask had slipped and revealed something ugly underneath. She thought about the nights they'd spent together, the conversations about their future. He'd talked about building something meaningful, about leaving a legacy. But he'd never mentioned his mother. Not once. When Gloria had asked about his family, he'd said simply, "It's just me. I've been on my own since college." How many other lies had he told? How many other truths had he buried? By Thursday, the first advertisers began pulling sponsorships from anything associated with Ben's name. A charity gala where he'd been the keynote speaker canceled his invitation. Northwestern released a statement. "While we celebrate the achievements of all our alumni, we do not condone behavior that contradicts our core values of respect, integrity, and compassion." Even his enemies were piling on now. Competitors who'd envied his rise suddenly found opportunities to position themselves as the ethical alternative. At Johnson Financial, we believe success begins with integrity, read one ad that appeared in the Tribune. The subtext, obvious. Ben's fall became a case study in modern cancel culture, though that phrase felt inadequate for what was happening. This wasn't cancellation. This was consequence. This was the universe correcting an imbalance. taking a man who'd risen too high without the foundation to support him and bringing him crashing back to earth. On Friday evening, Ben did what he should have done days ago. He got in his car, a black Mercedes he'd bought to impress clients, and drove to Pilsen. The neighborhood looked different than he remembered. Or maybe he was different. His eyes adjusted to see only what mattered to his current life. The streets were narrow, cracked. Kids played basketball in a lot between buildings. Music drifted from open windows, a mix of Spanish and English, salsa and hip-hop. The sound of immigrant dreams mixing with American reality. He parked outside Monica's building. The reporters had finally left, moved on to the next story, the next scandal. The internet's attention was infinite and brief, a blessing and a curse. He sat in the car for 20 minutes, trying to summon the courage to get out. What would he say? How do you apologize for destroying everything? How do you take back a moment that millions had witnessed, that would live forever in the digital amber of the internet? Finally, he opened the door. He climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, his feet knowing the way even though his mind had tried to forget. He stood outside apartment 3B, his hand raised to knock, frozen. The door opened. Mrs. Kowalski stood there, her face hard. "You have some nerve coming here. Is she? She doesn't want to see you. Please, I just need to talk to her. You've done enough talking. You've done enough hurting." Mrs. Kowalski started to close the door, then paused. "You know what the saddest part is? She still loves you, even after everything. She still loves you. That woman has more grace in her little finger than you have in your entire body." The door closed. Ben stood in the hallway, staring at the faded number on the door. 3B. He'd grown up behind that door. He'd done his homework at the small kitchen table. He'd dreamed his dreams in the tiny bedroom. He'd become who he was in these rooms, shaped by poverty and ambition and a mother's relentless love. And he'd thrown it all away for what? A penthouse he now couldn't return to? A business that was collapsing? A bride who wouldn't speak to him? A reputation destroyed? He slid down to sit on the floor, his back against the wall opposite Monica's door. He'd wait. However long it took, he'd wait. Inside, Monica heard him sit. She stood at her door, her hand pressed against the wood, feeling the vibration of his breathing on the other side. Part of her wanted to open it. Part of her wanted to gather him in her arms like she had when he was a boy, to forgive him, to tell him it would all be okay. But another part of her, a part that had been growing since the wedding, knew that forgiveness too easily given was just another form of enabling. Ben needed to face consequences. He needed to understand that actions mattered, that you couldn't just apologize and expect the world to reset. She walked to her bedroom, lay down on her small bed, and closed her eyes. Outside her door, her son waited. Between them, 3 inches of wood and a lifetime of distance. Ben waited outside Monica's apartment for 3 hours. When it became clear she wouldn't open the door, he left, but he came back the next day, and the day after that. Each time, Mrs. Kowalski turned him away with increasingly creative variations of, "She doesn't want to see you." On the 4th day, Monica finally opened the door. She looked smaller than he remembered, more fragile. The bruise on her face had faded to a yellowish green, but it was still visible. Ben's stomach twisted seeing it, the physical evidence of what he'd done. "5 minutes," she said. "That's all." They sat in her small living room, the same room where he'd watched cartoons as a kid, where she'd helped him with algebra homework, where she'd held him when he cried about being bullied at school for his old clothes and his free lunch status. I'm sorry, Ben said. The words felt pathetically inadequate. I'm so sorry, Mom. Monica didn't respond. She sat with her hands folded in her lap, looking at him like he was a stranger she was trying to place. I don't know what happened, he continued. I was stressed, and when I saw you there, I panicked. I wasn't thinking. You were thinking, Monica said quietly. You were thinking very clearly. You were thinking about your reputation, your wedding, your important guests. You were thinking about everything except me. That's not true, isn't it? She leaned forward slightly. Ben, you told people I was dead. You erased me from your life. Do you know how that feels? To know your child is ashamed of you? To know that everything you did, every sacrifice you made, it wasn't enough. You weren't just ashamed of where you came from. You were ashamed of me. I wasn't ashamed, he protested. But the lie tasted bitter even as he spoke it. Then what do you call it? Monica's voice rose slightly, emotion cracking through her controlled facade. You didn't invite me to your wedding. You told your friends I was dead. You struck me in front of 200 people. What would you call that if not shame? Ben had no answer. The silence stretched between them, heavy with 28 years of love and sacrifice and growing distance. I used to think, Monica said, her voice dropping back to barely audible, that if I just gave you enough, if I worked hard enough, if I sacrificed enough, you'd be happy. You'd be successful. And that would make everything worthwhile. All the pain, all the loneliness, all the nights I cried myself to sleep worrying about you, it would all mean something. She looked at him, really looked at him, and Ben felt like she was seeing straight through him to the hollow, broken thing he'd become. But I was wrong, she continued. I didn't raise you to be successful. I raised you to be decent, to be kind, to remember where you came from. And somewhere along the way, you forgot. Or maybe I failed to teach you. Maybe I was so busy pushing you forward that I forgot to teach you how to look back. You didn't fail me, Ben said, his voice cracking. I failed you. Yes, Monica said simply. You did. The words hit him like a physical blow. No anger, no dramatic accusation, just simple, devastating truth. So what now? Ben asked. Do you hate me? Monica was quiet for a long time. Outside, a siren wailed past. Children laughed in the apartment above them. Life continued, indifferent to their small tragedy. I don't hate you, she finally said. I wish I could. Hate would be easier. But I'm your mother. I can't hate you any more than I can stop breathing. It's not how I'm made. Then what do you feel? She thought about it. Sad, she said. I feel sad for both of us. Sad that you thought you had to erase me to succeed. Sad that I thought my love would be enough to protect you from becoming exactly this. Sad that we're sitting here in this room, talking like polite strangers, when I used to know every thought in your head. You can know me again, Ben said desperately. We can fix this. I'll do anything. I'll make it right. Some things can't be fixed, Ben. Some things, once broken, stay broken. I don't believe that. I know you don't. That's always been your problem. You think if you work hard enough, if you're smart enough, if you climb high enough, you can solve anything. But you can't solve this. This isn't a business problem. This isn't something you can negotiate or network your way out of. Ben felt tears burning behind his eyes. He fought them back, old habits dying hard. Chen men don't cry. Successful people don't show weakness. all the lies he'd told himself for years. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "Nothing," Monica said, and the word hung in the air like a death sentence. "I don't want anything from you anymore, Ben. I'm done wanting, I'm done hoping, I'm done sacrificing. I spent 28 years pouring myself into you, and you threw it back in my face, literally. I'm tired." "Mom, please." "You need to go now," she said, standing. "Your 5 minutes are up." Ben stood too, desperate, reaching for her. She stepped back. "Don't," she said. "Don't touch me. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I don't know." He left, walking down the stairs in a daze. Behind him, Monica closed and locked her door, then slid down to sit on the floor, her back against the wood, and wept for the boy she'd lost and the man she no longer recognized. The next day, Ben received a letter. Not an email, an actual physical letter, delivered by messenger to his apartment. The return address was a law firm in the Loop, Morrison, Hartwell and Associates, Congressman Hartwell's firm. He opened it with shaking hands. "Dear Mr. Chen, this letter serves as formal notice that our client, Ms. Gloria Hartwell, is terminating all agreements, contracts, and arrangements between you and the Hartwell family. This includes, but is not limited to, the proposed merger between Chen Capital Management and Hartwell Industries, your engagement to Ms. Hartwell, and any future professional or personal association. Furthermore, Ms. Dr. says Hartwell has requested that you cease all contact attempts, including calls, texts, emails, and in-person visits. Any violation of this request will be considered harassment and pursued through appropriate legal channels. The Hartwell family wishes you well in your future endeavors, but respectfully requests that those endeavors take place without any involvement from or reference to their family." It was signed by 3 partners, the legal equivalent of being erased by committee. Ben sat on his couch, the letter in his lap, and laughed. Not from joy, but from the absurd perfection of his collapse. He'd lost his mother, his fiancée, his company, his reputation, and now his professional network. In 1 week, he'd gone from the top of Chicago's business world to completely alone. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You got what you deserved, you piece of shit. Hope you rot. Delete." Another. "My mother died last year. I'd give anything to have her back. You threw yours away like garbage. Fuck you. Delete." Another. "I hope you die alone. Delete." But he couldn't delete them all. They kept coming, a flood of hatred and judgment from people who didn't know him, but felt entitled to condemn him based on 90 seconds of video. The internet's favorite pastime, destroying people who destroyed themselves. He poured a drink, scotch, expensive, aged 21 years. It tasted like ashes. His phone rang, a familiar number, his old college roommate, Jake. "Ben, man, I just saw the news. You okay?" The question was so absurd that Ben almost laughed again. "Yeah, Jake, I'm great, just lost everything. But other than that, terrific. Listen, I know you're going through it, but I have to ask, what happened?" The Ben I knew, he wasn't like this. He wouldn't do something like that. "So what changed?" "I changed," Ben said. "I became what I thought I needed to be to succeed. And it turns out, that person is terrible. So become someone else. It's not too late, isn't it?" Ben walked to his window, looked out at the lake. 30 million people saw me hit my mother. That's who I am now. That's all I'll ever be. That's all you'll be if you let it be. But Ben, man, you built a company from nothing. You were one of the smartest guys I knew. If you can do that, You can rebuild this. Not your reputation, maybe, but yourself. The part that matters. After they hung up, Ben sat in the dark, nursing his drink, thinking about Jake's words. Rebuild himself. But into what? He'd spent so long constructing the person he thought he should be that he'd lost touch with who he actually was. Or maybe that wasn't quite right. Maybe he hadn't lost touch. Maybe he'd always known, deep down, that the person he was pretending to be was a lie. And maybe the slap, the moment of violence that destroyed everything, was really a moment of truth. His real self finally breaking through the carefully maintained facade. If that was true, if the person who struck his mother was the real Ben, then maybe he didn't deserve to be rebuilt. Maybe he deserved exactly what was happening. He finished his drink and poured another. Across town, Monica couldn't sleep. She lay in her small bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Ben as a child. She remembered one night when he was 8, he'd woken up crying from a nightmare. She'd held him and asked what it was about. "I dreamed you left me," he'd said through tears. "You got tired of me and left." "Oh, baby," she'd whispered, holding him tight. "I will never leave you, never. No matter what, you're stuck with me forever. Promise?" "I promise." But she'd been wrong. She hadn't left him. He'd left her. Or maybe they'd both left each other, drifting apart over years until they were strangers who happened to share DNA. She got up, walked to her small kitchen, made tea she wouldn't drink. On her refrigerator were photos held by magnets. Ben at various ages, smiling, happy, young. She looked at them and tried to find the moment when she'd lost him. Was it high school, when he started being embarrassed by her? College, when he stopped calling regularly? After graduation, when he moved into his own world and closed the door behind him? Or was it earlier? Was it the first time she'd pushed him to study instead of play? The first time she'd told him he needed to work harder, be better, aim higher? Had she created the monster who struck her by teaching him that nothing was ever enough, that rest was weakness, that love was something to be earned through achievement? The thought was unbearable. The possibility that she'd built the weapon that wounded her. Mrs. Kowalski found her in the kitchen at 3 a.m., staring at nothing. "Monica, honey, you need to sleep." "I can't stop thinking," Monica said. "Did I do this? Did I make him this way? You made him ambitious. He made himself cruel. Those are different things. Are they? I taught him that success was everything, that nothing else mattered. Maybe he was just following my instructions." Mrs. Kowalski sat down, took Monica's hand. "You taught him to work hard. You didn't teach him to be ashamed of you. You didn't teach him to lie about who he was. He learned that somewhere else. From the world, maybe. From those rich kids he wanted to impress. But not from you. Then why does it feel like my fault?" "Because you're a mother. Everything feels like your fault when your child hurts. But Monica, listen to me. You gave him everything. He chose to throw it away. That's on him." Monica wanted to believe her, but belief, like forgiveness, was something she'd have to work towards slowly, painfully, one day at a time. The next morning, Ben received an email from Derek. "The board wants you out completely. No equity, no partnership, nothing. They're offering a buyout, but it's pennies on the dollar. They're basically stealing your company. I fought for you, man, but after everything, I'm outvoted. I'm sorry." Ben didn't reply. What was there to say? He started drinking at noon. By evening, he was drunk enough to do something he'd been avoiding. He Googled himself. The results were overwhelming. Thousands of articles, videos, think pieces. His Wikipedia page had been updated. Benjamin Marcus Chen, born 1996, is a former financial manager who became internationally known in September 2024 after a video of him physically assaulting his mother at his wedding went viral. That was his legacy now. Not his business acumen, not his rise from poverty, just the slap. Just 90 seconds that would define him forever. He found a Reddit thread. The wedding slap guy, where is he now? Thousands of comments, most speculating about his downfall, many hoping for worse. One comment stood out. You know what's fucked up? His mom probably still loves him. That's what moms do. They love you even when you don't deserve it. That makes what he did even worse. Ben closed his laptop and cried. Really cried. For the first time since he was a child. Ugly, gulping sobs that shook his whole body. He cried for Monica, for the pain he'd caused her. He cried for himself, for the life he'd destroyed. He cried for the boy he'd been, the one who'd loved his mother unself-consciously, before the world taught him that love was weakness and weakness was failure. When he finally stopped, exhausted, he made a decision. He couldn't fix what he'd broken, but maybe he could build something new from the pieces. Not for redemption, he was past that. But for something simpler, penance. He opened his laptop and began to write. Have you ever sacrificed your values for success? Have you ever hurt someone you loved to protect your image? Share your story in the comments. Let's start a conversation about the cost of ambition. Ben's blog post went live at 2 a.m., written in a haze of scotch and self-loathing. It was titled simply, What I've Lost. I'm Benjamin Chen. By now, you probably know me as the man who slapped his mother at his wedding. You've seen the video. You've shared it, commented on it, judged me for it. You're right to judge. I did something unforgivable, but this isn't an apology. I've tried apologizing, and the words feel empty, inadequate. This is an attempt at honesty. Not to redeem myself, I don't think that's possible, but to maybe help you understand how a person becomes someone they never meant to be. The post went on for 3,000 words. He wrote about his childhood, about Monica's sacrifices, about the shame he'd felt growing up poor in a city that worshipped wealth. He wrote about the first time a rich classmate had mocked his shoes, and how that moment had planted a seed that grew into a poisonous tree. He wrote about the lies he'd told, the identity he'd constructed, the way he'd systematically erased his past to create a future. I thought if I climbed high enough, the ground wouldn't matter anymore. I thought I could outrun my origins, but you can't outrun yourself. Eventually, you look in the mirror and don't recognize the person staring back. And then you do something terrible, something you can't take back. And suddenly you're forced to see who you've become. My mother raised me alone. She worked 3 jobs. She went hungry so I could eat. She gave me everything she had and asked for nothing in return. And I repaid her by pretending she didn't exist, by being ashamed of her, by striking her when she had the audacity to show up and remind me where I came from. I have no excuse. Stress doesn't justify violence. Embarrassment doesn't justify cruelty. I did what I did because I'm weak. Because when my carefully constructed image was threatened, I chose it over her. I chose a lie over the only person who ever loved me unconditionally. He wrote about losing his company, his fiancée, his reputation. He wrote about sitting alone in his expensive apartment, surrounded by symbols of success that suddenly felt like props in a play that had closed. So, here's what I've learned. Success without humanity is just expensive loneliness, You can have all the money in the world, live in the nicest apartment, wear the best clothes, and still be completely empty inside. I had everything I thought I wanted, and in getting it, I lost the only thing that actually mattered: my mother's love. The post ended with a simple statement: if you have people in your life who sacrificed for you, who loved you when you had nothing, who stood by you before you were successful, don't let them go. Don't be like me. Don't wake up one day and realize you traded everything real for something hollow. He published it without reading it over, afraid if he did, he'd delete the whole thing. By morning, the post had gone viral. Not as viral as the slap video, but viral enough. News outlets picked it up. Psychology Today published a response piece. The Reddit thread exploded with reactions ranging from "too little too late" to "maybe this guy actually gets it now." One comment stuck with him. "Cool blog post. Now go to your mother and apologize to her face. Until then, this is just performative bullshit." The person wasn't wrong. Monica read the blog post on Mrs. Kowalski's iPad. Her neighbor had shown it to her over breakfast, unsure if it would help or hurt. Monica read it twice, tears streaming down her face. Not tears of joy, but of profound sadness, because she could see in every word how much pain Ben was in. She could see her little boy, lost and scared, crying out for help. She could see the man he'd become, finally understanding what he'd lost. But seeing it and forgiving it were different things. "He's suffering," Mrs. Kowalski said gently. "Good," Monica replied, then immediately felt guilty for saying it. "No, not good. I don't want him to suffer. But I need him to understand, really understand, not just intellectually, but in his bones. I need him to feel what it's like to be erased, to be treated as less than human, to be struck by someone who's supposed to love you. Do you think he feels it now?" Monica looked at the iPad, at her son's words pouring out in digital confession. "I think he's starting to." That afternoon, Ben received a call from an unknown number. He almost didn't answer, expecting another death threat or reporter, but something made him pick up. "Is this Benjamin Chen?" "Yes." "Mr. Chen, my name is Dr. Sarah Williams. I'm a psychologist in Chicago, and I specialize in family trauma. I read your post, and I'd like to offer you my services, pro bono." "I don't need therapy," Ben said automatically. "Mr. Chen, with respect, you just destroyed your life, your career, and your relationship with your mother in one impulsive act. I think therapy might be exactly what you need." She wasn't wrong. They made an appointment for the following week. Meanwhile, something unexpected was happening. Inspired by Ben's post, people began sharing their own stories. A hashtag emerged: "What if lost?" Thousands of people posted about relationships they'd damaged, parents they'd neglected, siblings they'd hurt in their climb toward success. A woman in Seattle wrote, "I told my dad his restaurant wasn't good enough for my college friends. He died last year. I never apologized." What if lost? A man in Atlanta posted, "I made my mom hide in the kitchen during my engagement party because she didn't fit with my fiance's family. The guilt eats me alive." What if lost? A young woman in Boston shared, "I made my sister lie to my friends about being adopted because I was embarrassed we didn't look alike. She doesn't speak to me now." What I've lost. The slap had ignited something larger than Ben's personal tragedy. It had become a cultural touchstone, a moment that forced people to examine their own relationships, their own compromises, their own betrayals. Churches began using the video in sermons about honoring your parents. Business schools added it to ethics curricula. Therapists reported an uptick in clients wanting to address estranged family relationships. From one terrible moment, a conversation was born. 1 week after the wedding, Gloria called Ben. He was shocked to see her name on his phone. "Gloria, don't," she cut him off. "I'm not calling to get back together. I'm calling because I need to understand something. Did you ever love me? Or was I just another acquisition? Another rung on your ladder?" Ben thought about lying, then decided he owed her the truth. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I thought I loved you. I told myself I loved you. But looking back, I think I loved what you represented. The connections, the status, the validation. I'm not sure I ever saw you as a person, just as a symbol." Silence on the line. Then, "Thank you for your honesty. I hope you figure out how to actually love someone someday. But Ben, it's going to require becoming someone different than who you are. I know. Good luck." She hung up. Ben stared at his phone and realized he felt relief. Relief that he didn't have to pretend anymore. Relief that the charade was over. Relief that he could finally stop climbing and maybe, just maybe, start descending back towards solid ground. That night, Monica had a dream. She was back in St. Catherine's Cathedral, wearing her white dress. But this time, when she walked down the aisle, Ben turned and saw her. Really saw her, and instead of anger, his face filled with joy. He ran to her, wrapped her in his arms, and said, "Mom, I'm so glad you're here." She woke up crying. Mrs. Kowalski heard her and came over, sitting on the edge of the bed. "I dreamed he remembered me," Monica said. "I dreamed he loved me again." "He never stopped loving you," Mrs. Kowalski said. "He just forgot how. Will he remember?" "I don't know, honey. But I know this. You can't wait for him to remember. You have to decide if you want him in your life, even if he never becomes who you want him to be." The question hung in the small bedroom. Was a flawed son better than no son at all? Was damaged love still love? Could you hold space for someone who'd hurt you while also holding boundaries to protect yourself? Monica didn't have answers, only questions that would haunt her through the long, lonely weeks ahead. 2 weeks after the wedding, Ben stood outside Monica's apartment again. But this time, he didn't knock. He sat on the hallway floor and began to speak, loud enough for her to hear through the door, but not so loud he disturbed the neighbors. "Mom, I know you don't want to see me. I understand. But I need to tell you some things, and this is the only way I can." Inside, Monica stood frozen, her hand on the doorknob. "I'm going to therapy," Ben continued. "Dr. Williams says I have shame issues and narcissistic tendencies and probably some other diagnoses she hasn't told me yet. She says I might have learned these patterns from childhood, from feeling like I was never enough, from thinking love had to be earned through achievement. I'm not telling you this to blame you. You didn't make me this way. But those feelings, that shame, they turned into something toxic. They turned into the belief that who I was wasn't good enough, that I had to become someone else to deserve love." He paused, gathering courage. "The fucked up thing is, you loved me exactly as I was. You never asked me to be more than myself. But I couldn't see that, because I was so busy looking up, trying to reach the next level, trying to prove to everyone, including myself, that I was worthy. And somewhere in all that climbing, I left you behind. I left myself behind." Monica pressed her ear against the door, tears streaming down her face. "I can't change what I did. I can't take back the slap or the years of neglect or telling people you were dead. All I can do is tell you the truth. I was wrong. Not wrong in the way people are wrong about math problems or business decisions. wrong in a fundamental, soul-deep way. I betrayed the person who loved me most. I betrayed myself, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to understand how I became someone capable of that. He stood up, his knees creaking from sitting on the hard floor. I'm selling the apartment, everything in it. I'm starting over, but different this time. Not climbing towards something. Just trying to become someone decent, someone you might not be ashamed to know. He started to walk away, then turned back. I love you, Mom. I know I never said it enough. I know saying it now, after everything, might sound empty, but it's true. You're the only real thing I ever had, and I threw you away. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He left. Behind the door, Monica slid down to sit on the floor, her body shaking with sobs. Mrs. Kowalski found her there an hour later. Did you hear? Monica asked. Some of it. What do I do? What do you want to do? I want my son back, Monica whispered. But I don't know if that person still exists. I don't know if he ever did, or if I just imagined him. Then you wait, Mrs. Kowalski said. You wait and see if he becomes someone worth knowing. And while you wait, you take care of yourself. You've spent 28 years putting him first. Maybe it's time to put Monica first. The words landed like truth. Monica had spent her entire adult life defined by her role as Ben's mother. Without that, who was she? What did she want? What dreams had she deferred? What life had she not lived because she was too busy ensuring her son could live his? She didn't know the answers, but for the first time she realized she needed to find out. 6 months passed. Ben sold his penthouse and moved into a modest one-bedroom apartment in Logan Square, a neighborhood he'd never have considered during his rise. He sold most of his possessions, expensive watches and designer suits that now felt like costumes from a play he no longer performed. The buyout from Chen Capital was finalized. After legal fees and creditor claims, he walked away with enough to live simply for a few years if he was careful. He took a job at a nonprofit financial literacy organization, teaching low-income families about budgeting and investing. The pay was terrible. The work was unglamorous. But for the first time in years, he felt like he was doing something that mattered. Therapy with Dr. Williams continued weekly. She helped him understand the patterns he'd developed, the shame of poverty that transformed into contempt for his origins, the belief that love was transactional, the deep-seated feeling of never being enough that drove him to constantly achieve, while simultaneously destroying the relationships that might have made him feel sufficient. You built your identity on external validation, Dr. Williams explained in one session. When your mother showed up at the wedding, she threatened that identity. She was a living reminder that you weren't the self-made man you claimed to be, and you reacted to that threat with violence. So what do I do now? You build a new identity, not based on what others think of you, but on who you actually want to be. And Ben, that's going to require sitting with a lot of uncomfortable feelings. Shame, guilt, grief. You've been running from these feelings your whole life. It's time to stop running. The work was brutal. Some days, Ben sat in his small apartment, overwhelmed by waves of self-loathing so intense he could barely breathe. He'd think about the slap, about Monica's face, about the moment everything changed, and the guilt would crush him. But slowly, painfully, he began to change. Not the surface-level change he'd mastered before, changing his clothes or his accent or his story to fit different rooms. Deeper change. The kind that rewires your brain and rebuilds your soul from the foundation up. He stopped checking how many social media followers he had. He stopped Googling himself, stopped reading the comments and articles. He deleted his LinkedIn profile. He let go of the need to be somebody and focused on trying to be decent. Meanwhile, Monica was changing too. With Mrs. Kowalski's encouragement, she'd started attending a support group for mothers with estranged children. She met women from across Chicago, from every background, all united by the same painful experience: loving children who'd left them behind. A woman named Patricia shared, "My daughter hasn't spoken to me in 8 years. She says I was too controlling when she was growing up. Maybe I was. I don't know. I was just trying to keep her safe." Another woman, Deborah, said, "My son came out as gay when he was 17. I didn't handle it well. I said things I can't take back. Now he lives in California and we exchange Christmas cards. That's it. Christmas cards from my only child." Hearing these stories, Monica realized she wasn't alone. Millions of parents experienced this particular heartbreak. The child you'd do anything for deciding they'd do anything to get away from you. But the group taught her something else too. She couldn't fix this alone. Ben had to want to change. Ben had to do the work. She could leave the door open, but she couldn't force him to walk through it. She also started doing things for herself. She enrolled in a painting class at the local community center. Something she'd always wanted to try, but never had time for because she was always working. She wasn't good at it, her hands too stiff from years of manual labor to create the graceful brushstrokes she envisioned, but she enjoyed it. For the first time in decades, she was doing something purely because she wanted to, not because it served someone else. She made friends in the class, real friends, not just neighbors or co-workers, but people who knew her as Monica, not as Ben's mother or Monica the waitress. They'd go out for coffee after class, talk about their lives, laugh at stupid jokes. She discovered she had a personality beyond motherhood, interests beyond her son's success. One day, about 4 months after the wedding, she looked in the mirror and saw something she hadn't seen in years: herself. Not a younger self, not the person she'd been before Ben was born, but a current self, with gray hair and wrinkles and eyes that held both pain and resilience. She looked like a woman who'd survived something difficult, and she realized that's exactly what she was. Ben didn't try to contact Monica during these months. Dr. Williams had advised him to give her space, to focus on his own healing before attempting reconciliation. "You can't give someone a relationship when you don't even have a relationship with yourself," she'd said. But he thought about her constantly. He drove by her building sometimes, not stopping, just checking to see if her lights were on, if she was okay. Once he saw her leaving with a group of women, all carrying canvas bags. She was laughing at something one of them said. The sight of her laughing, of her living a life that didn't include him, should have hurt. Instead, he felt relieved. She was okay. She was moving forward. She didn't need him to survive. That realization was both devastating and freeing. On the 6-month anniversary of the wedding, Ben wrote Monica a letter. Not an email, a physical letter, handwritten on plain paper. No expensive stationery, no trying to impress, just his messy handwriting and honest words. "Dear Mom, it's been 6 months since I did the worst thing I've ever done. I've spent every day since trying to understand how I became someone capable of that. Dr. Williams, my therapist, says healing isn't linear, that some days I'll feel like I'm making progress, and other days I'll feel like I'm back where I started. Today is one of the back where I started days. I'm sitting in my apartment, which is nothing like the penthouse and everything like the places we lived when I was growing up. and I'm thinking about all the versions of me that existed over the years. There's the Ben who was 7 and held your hand on the first day of school. The Ben who was 14 and started being embarrassed by you. The Ben who was 22 and told his college friends you were dead. The Ben who was 28 and struck you at his wedding. And now this Ben, 39 weeks older, trying to figure out if any of those previous versions are redeemable or if I need to become someone entirely new. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me. I don't know if I deserve forgiveness. But I wanted you to know that I'm trying. Not trying to become successful again. Not trying to rebuild my image. Just trying to become the son you deserved to have. I got a job teaching financial literacy to families in the neighborhoods we used to live in. It doesn't pay much, and my old colleagues would laugh if they saw me now. But when I help a single mom understand how to build credit, or teach a teenager about compound interest, I think maybe this is what I should have been doing all along. You used to tell me that success without kindness is just expensive cruelty. I didn't understand what you meant. I thought kindness was a luxury you could afford after you were successful. Now I understand that kindness is the foundation. Without it, everything else is just a house built on sand, waiting for the first wave to knock it down. I hope you're well. I hope you're happy. I hope you're discovering that life without me in it can be full and rich and worth living. Because you deserve that, Mom. You deserve everything good in this world. I love you. I don't expect you to say it back. I don't expect anything. I just wanted you to know. Ben, he mailed the letter, not to her apartment, but to Mrs. Kowalski's address, trusting her neighbor to decide whether Monica should receive it. Monica read the letter in her kitchen while drinking her morning tea. Mrs. Kowalski had brought it over with a look that said, "I think you need to see this, but I'll stay if you need me." Monica read it 3 times. Each time she felt something different. The first read brought tears. The second brought anger. Why did it take 6 months for him to reach out? The third brought something unexpected. Pride. Her son was trying. Not perfectly, not dramatically, but genuinely. He was becoming someone different. Not for her or for his image, but for himself. That was what she'd always wanted, underneath all the pushing and sacrificing. She'd wanted him to be good, not just successful. And maybe finally, he was trying to be good. She didn't respond to the letter immediately. She carried it with her for days, reading it during lunch breaks, before bed, whenever she needed to remember that change was possible, that people could grow, that the boy she'd loved wasn't completely lost, just buried under years of wrong choices. 2 weeks later, she wrote back, "Dear Ben, I received your letter. Thank you for writing it. Thank you for being honest. I won't lie and say everything is fine, that we can pick up where we left off, that 6 months of work erases 28 years of hurt. But I will say this. I see you trying, and that matters. I've spent these months learning to be Monica, not just your mother. I've been painting, making friends, discovering that I have an identity beyond the one I built around raising you. It's been strange and sometimes lonely, but also liberating. For the first time in nearly 3 decades, I'm living for myself. I don't know what our relationship looks like moving forward. I don't know if we can rebuild what was broken, or if we need to build something entirely new. But I'm willing to try, slowly, carefully, with boundaries and honesty. Maybe we could meet for coffee? Nothing heavy, just coffee, and we can see what happens from there. Mom, they met on a Thursday afternoon at a small cafe in Pilsen, neutral territory but familiar ground. Ben arrived first, nervous as a teenager on a first date. He'd worn jeans and a simple sweater. Nothing designer, nothing trying to impress. Just him, as unadorned as he knew how to be. Monica arrived 10 minutes later. She wore a paint-stained jacket, her hair pulled back simply. She looked different than he remembered, lighter somehow, less burdened. She'd been carrying him for so long that letting go had given her room to breathe. They sat across from each other, both ordering coffee they'd barely touch, both trying to figure out how to be in the same space after everything that had happened. "You look good," Ben said finally. "So do you." "Different, but good. I'm trying to be different. Dr. Williams says..." "Ben," Monica interrupted gently, "we don't have to do this. We don't have to perform healing for each other. Let's just be. Can we just be?" He nodded, relieved. They sat in silence for a moment, the cafe bustling around them with the sounds of espresso machines and muted conversations. "I've been painting," Monica said eventually. "I'm terrible at it, but I enjoy it." "What do you paint?" "Abstract things, colors and shapes. My teacher says I'm expressing my feelings through the canvas." She smiled slightly. "I think I'm just making a mess, but a meaningful mess." Ben laughed, genuine and surprised. "I'd like to see them sometime, if you'd want to show me." "Maybe. Eventually." They talked for an hour. Not about the slap, not about forgiveness, not about the future. Just about small things. The books Monica was reading, the families Ben was helping at the nonprofit, the weather, the city, the tiny details of daily life that make up most of existence. When they parted, Monica did something unexpected. She reached out and touched Ben's hand, just briefly, just long enough to say, "I'm proud of you for trying." Ben felt tears prick his eyes. "Thank you," he whispered. "Don't thank me yet. We have a long way to go, I know." "But Ben," she said, looking at him directly, her eyes holding his. "We're going. That's something." They met again 2 weeks later. Then again the week after that. Slowly, carefully, they began rebuilding. Not the relationship they'd had. That was gone, destroyed in one violent moment. But something new, something built on honesty rather than obligation, on choice rather than blood. Ben showed Monica his apartment. She looked around at the simple furniture, the near-empty walls, the absence of everything he used to chase. "This feels like you," she said. "The real you. I'm still figuring out who that is." "That's okay. I'm still figuring out who I am too." They both knew the road ahead was long. Some days were good, full of tentative smiles and small jokes. Other days were hard, when old resentments surfaced or when Monica would unexpectedly remember the wedding and need space to process her feelings. But they kept showing up. That was the difference. They kept choosing to try, even when it was uncomfortable, even when it would have been easier to walk away. 1 year after the wedding, they stood together at St. Catherine's Cathedral. Ben had requested this, a return to the scene of his worst moment. Monica had been hesitant, but she'd agreed. They stood in the spot where it had happened. The marble floor had been cleaned, but Ben could still see the ghost of scattered roses, still hear the echo of the slap, still feel the weight of that moment hanging in the air. "Why did you want to come here?" Monica asked. "Because I need to remember," Ben said. "I need to remember what happens when I lose myself. I need to remember the worst thing I'm capable of, so I never do it again." "And what are you capable of?" "Cruelty," Ben said honestly. "Cowardice, betrayal, but also I'm learning. Maybe I'm capable of change. Maybe we all are." Monica looked around the cathedral, at the stained glass and the vaulted ceilings and the altar where Ben had stood a year ago, thinking he had everything. "You know what I think?" she said. "I think some wounds become scars, and scars are just proof that we survived something. This," she gestured around them, "this is our scar. It will always be part of our story. But it doesn't have to be the end." They left the cathedral together, walking out into the Chicago afternoon. The city stretched around them, indifferent and enormous. Somewhere in its vast expanse, other mothers and sons were navigating their own complicated relationships, their own betrayals and reconciliations, their own journeys from brokenness towards something resembling wholeness. Ben and Monica's story wasn't fixed. It might never be fixed, but it was continuing, and for now, that was enough. So where are they now? It's been 3 years since the slap heard round the internet. 3 years since Ben destroyed his life in 90 seconds of violence. 3 years of slow, painful, necessary growth. Ben still works at the nonprofit. He's been promoted to program director, not because he chased the position, but because he showed up every day, did the work, and helped hundreds of families gain financial stability. He lives simply, intentionally. His apartment is still modest, his possessions still minimal. He's learned that freedom isn't having everything, it's needing very little. He sees Dr. Williams twice a month now, down from weekly. The therapy continues because he knows the work of becoming a decent human isn't something you complete. It's something you commit to for life. Some days are still hard. Sometimes he catches himself falling into old patterns, thinking about status or success or what other people think. But now he notices it, catches himself, corrects course. Monica still lives in Pilsen, though she could afford to move now. Ben sends her money every month, not out of obligation, but because he wants to. She accepts it, not because she needs it, but because accepting it is part of their new relationship. Letting him give, letting herself receive. She still paints. Her work has improved. She had a small showing at a community gallery last year. Nothing fancy, but people came. People bought her paintings. She discovered she had talent buried under decades of no time and no permission to develop it. She and Ben see each other every other week. Sometimes for coffee, sometimes for dinner, sometimes they just walk through the city and talk. The relationship is different now. Not mother and child, but two adults who happen to share a complicated history. It's less intense than before, but healthier. They've both learned that love doesn't require suffocation, that you can care deeply about someone while also maintaining your own separate life. They don't talk about the slap much anymore. It's part of their story, always will be, but it's not the whole story. They've added new chapters. The chapter where Ben learned humility, the chapter where Monica discovered herself, the chapter where they both figured out how to love each other without losing themselves. Gloria got married last year to someone else, a lawyer from her father's firm. Ben saw the announcement in the paper and felt only mild curiosity. That life, the one where he climbed and conquered and collected, feels like it belonged to a different person. In a way, it did. The company he founded, Chen Capital, no longer exists. It collapsed 2 years after the wedding, a victim of bad press and worse management after he left. Ben felt surprisingly little when he heard. You can't mourn the death of something that was never really alive, just a carefully constructed illusion. The video still exists, of course. It's permanent digital evidence of his worst moment. Every few months, it resurfaces, usually during discussions about family or success or violence. Ben doesn't watch it anymore. He doesn't need to. He was there. He knows exactly what he did. But something unexpected happened with that video. It became a teaching tool. Universities use it in ethics classes. Therapists share it with clients struggling with shame. Churches screen it in sermons about forgiveness and redemption. From one terrible moment, thousands of conversations have emerged about what we owe each other, about the cost of ambition, about how to maintain your humanity while pursuing success. Ben gets emails sometimes from people the video has helped. A young man who saw it and called his estranged mother. A woman who realized she was treating her parents the way Ben had treated Monica and changed course. A father who showed it to his son with the caption, "Don't ever let this be us." "The worst thing I ever did," Ben told Dr. Williams in a recent session, "has somehow helped people. I don't know what to do with that." "Maybe that's grace," Dr. Williams said. "Maybe grace is when your worst moment becomes something useful, not by erasing it or justifying it, but by letting it teach what it has to teach." But let's be clear about something important. Ben is not a hero. This is not a redemption story in the traditional sense. He doesn't get everything back. He doesn't return to glory. He doesn't get the girl or rebuild his empire or receive some cosmic reward for doing the basic work of becoming decent. He's just a man who did something terrible, and then, instead of running from it or minimizing it, tried to face it, tried to become someone different. That's not heroic. That's just what should happen when you hurt someone. The truth is, Monica would have been justified in never speaking to him again. She would have been justified in pressing charges, in telling everyone who'd listen about the son who betrayed her, in spending the rest of her life bitter and angry. That she chose differently doesn't make Ben's actions okay. It makes her extraordinary. And that's the real story here. Not the man who fell and got back up, but the woman who was knocked down and chose to extend a hand anyway. Not because Ben earned it, but because Monica decided that forgiveness was something she wanted to offer, not for him, but for herself. Forgiveness, she told her support group, isn't about letting the other person off the hook. It's about refusing to let their actions define the rest of your life. It's about choosing to live free. So what can we learn from this story? First, success without humanity is just expensive loneliness. You can have all the money, all the status, all the external markers of achievement, and still be completely empty inside. The people who love you when you have nothing are the only people who truly matter. Don't sacrifice them for people who only love what you've become. Second, shame is a liar. It tells you that you have to hide parts of yourself, that you have to curate your image, that you can't be successful and authentic. But shame only has power when you let it hide in darkness. When you bring it into the light. When you say, "Yes, I came from poverty. Yes, my mother worked as a waitress. Yes, I struggled." Shame loses its grip. Third, forgiveness is possible, but it's not required. Monica chose to let Ben back into her life, slowly, carefully, with boundaries. But she would have been just as justified in choosing differently. No one owes forgiveness to someone who's hurt them, no matter how much that person has changed. Forgiveness is a gift, not an obligation. Fourth, change is possible, but it's brutally hard. Ben didn't just wake up one day different. He did years of therapy, years of sitting with uncomfortable feelings, years of choosing differently even when his old patterns screamed at him to fall back into familiar behaviors. Change requires not just wanting to be different, but doing the daily work of being different. And finally, you can't outrun yourself. Ben tried. He climbed as high as he could, changed his name, effectively, his accent, his story, his entire identity. But it didn't work. Eventually, who you really are catches up with you. You can spend your whole life running, or you can turn around and face yourself. One requires constant energy and ends in disaster. The other requires courage but offers the possibility of peace. Now it's time to talk about you. Think about your own life. Think about the people who helped you get where you are. The parents who sacrificed, the teachers who believed in you, the friends who supported you when you had nothing. Are they still in your life? Do you honor them? Do you acknowledge their role in your success? Or have you, like Ben, rewritten your history to make yourself the sole author of your achievements? And if you've hurt someone in your climb, if you've sacrificed relationships for status, if you've betrayed the people who loved you unconditionally, what are you going to do about it? You can't change the past, but you can change what you do next. You can pick up the phone. You can write the letter. You can show up even when it's uncomfortable, even when you don't know what to say, even when you're terrified of facing the person you've hurt. Or you can keep climbing, keep chasing, keep telling yourself that once you get to the next level, once you achieve the next goal, then you'll have time for relationships. Then you'll make things right. But that day never comes. There's always one more rung on the ladder. There's always one more achievement to chase. And meanwhile, the people who actually matter are getting older, moving on, learning to live without you. Monica is 66 now. She's healthy, but she won't be here forever. Ben knows this. He knows every dinner, every coffee, every phone call is precious because the number of them is finite. He doesn't take them for granted anymore. Do you? Here's what I want you to do. If your mother is still alive, call her. Today. Right now. Tell her you love her. Tell her thank you. If your relationship is broken, take the first step toward fixing it. Not with a grand gesture, not with an expensive gift, but with humility and honesty. If your mother has passed, do something in her honor. Donate to a charity she would have supported. Help someone the way she helped you. Live in a way that would make her proud. And if you're someone who's hurt the people who loved you, if you've climbed over relationships to reach success, if you've been ashamed of where you came from, stop. Stop running. Stop pretending. Stop sacrificing your humanity for status. It's not too late. It's never too late to choose differently. Unless it is. Unless the person you need to apologize to is gone. Unless you've run out of time, don't let that be your story. What would you have done if you were Ben? If you were standing at that altar and your mother walked in, uninvited, dressed in a thrift store dress, threatening the image you'd spent years building? Would you have welcomed her? Would you have embraced her in front of everyone and said, "This is my mom. She raised me alone. She's the reason I'm here today"? Or would you have done what Ben did? Be honest, because the answer tells you something important about who you are and who you're becoming. Let me know in the comments. Share your story. Tell me about the relationships you've sacrificed, the people you've hurt, the changes you need to make. And if you think this story was powerful, wait until you hear the next one. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Because these stories, these moments of truth, where people's masks slip and their real selves show through, they're everywhere. They're happening right now, all around us, and someone needs to tell them. Hit that subscribe button if you believe in honesty and growth and the messy, difficult work of becoming a better human being. Only people who prefer comfortable lies over uncomfortable truths would refuse to join us. And one more thing. Go look in the mirror. Really look. Ask yourself, am I becoming someone my younger self would be proud of? Am I becoming someone the people who love me would recognize? Or am I becoming a stranger, chasing external validation while losing internal integrity? The answer might scare you, but it might also save you. Because somewhere tonight, another mother is standing outside locked doors, waiting to be remembered by the child she gave everything to raise. Don't let your mother become that woman. Don't let yourself become that child. Love your mother. Honor your origins. Stay human. That's all. That's the message. That's the only thing that matters. At Virtuous Stories, we love you.